Hey, I'm back. So, this is either going to be the longest crowdfunding roundup video in the history of my channel, or I may have to cut things out. So if this hour-long video turns into 2 hours, well, you know what happened. And, of course, the week I go on vacation, right? Boom! Stuff blows up. And then the following week, stuff, boom, blows up. It's fun, though. It's fun. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. Some interesting stuff, some very interested stuff from my standpoint, and some stuff that, well, you'll see. You ready? Round up. I'm back, baby. Let's go. Just as a start right here, pulling up the Kickstarter page, right? This is new. New! I don't like it. I don't like hovering over these things and seeing graphics moving and this thing popping down and getting in the way of clicking on other projects. I don't like it. Kickstarter trying to be a little bit blingy and being less functional at the same time. See Game Found. Anyway, let's go. I freaking hate this Kickstarter thing right here at the top. You even go over this. Anyway, but look at this. It doesn't go away. Okay, Thunder Road Vendetta. Thunder Road Vendetta, Carnival of Chaos. You can see at the top of this page right now, I am backing. It was in my top 10 of 2023. I sigh there, more out of comic relief than anything else, right? Like, I can't get away from it. I think this is a fantastic game. $1.1 million. There weren't a ton of people following this, but your boy told you here that a ton of people were going to want a Maximum Chrome Edition. And for $45, with the content that you're getting and the exclusivity that Restoration did with the first time around, yeah, you're giving me a 5-player versus mode now, essentially. And all of the stuff that maybe you missed the first time around, and you're going to be getting a bonus promo pack. And this is not insignificant, the swag pack here that's going along with these pledges, because they're slowly giving us more stuff, as you can see here. And it's more than just like an 8-card promo pack, which is more of the rage nowadays with some of the heavier or more mini expansions that are going along with it. So I'm intrigued, right? You have Arena, run, gun, blow them up, not just race anymore. I love it. Look, you just go down to the gameplay, right? You're getting spotlight for getting scrapped, for knocking other people out, blowing them up, doing damage. You're impressing Tina there. Tina just says, blow up Palooza, or whatever the rulebook calls it here, is going on. You get your super weapons, your party favors, your killer pillars, and you just slam into each other driving around in the arena. Last one standing wins. And I love this. I love this mode. This is just not adding depth in terms of, over complexifying it, but it's giving you just something else you can utilize with all the cool stuff that make this game awesome in the first place. If you didn't like the game, this probably isn't going to change your mind, but it turns into a less of a race and more of just a battle royale. And that's it, right? All of one player's vehicles are inoperable or have been eliminated, and no more cards in the deck. And you don't, you're out. So you have the most scrap, you win. I don't think it needs to be any more complicated than that. Marvel United is a great game because it doesn't overcomplicate things. Look, here's your board, here's your foundation board, here's your extra cool stuff that's going to go along with it, and it's going to be freaking awesome. Now, you're not going to see a quote on, this page from me because, again, second tier YouTuber here, but again, take it for what you will. This is a fantastic game, and I love it. It's not going anywhere in my collection. This is one that I would argue is probably going to be one of my underappreciated gems staying around, and I could see this one climbing into my top 25, again, depending on how much it actually gets played. Now, that is a bump up, I believe, from the previous. It was sitting around 140 or 150, but not as big a bump up as you could get overall. And if you get the scrap, the extender, and the expansion, $200 isn't a bad price. Now, still $200 though, folks. Still $200. Still $200. It's still a lot of money. You have to love it. You have to love it. You have to love it. That'll be the theme this week more than anything else. But you're getting stretch goals as well. So if you're a fan of it originally, maybe this is the expansion you pick up along with piecemealing one or two of the other ones at retail. And maybe you go half in if you don't already have the Maximum Chrome, because you got to know what you're getting. And look at all this stuff you're getting with the promo pack, though. And that's where Restoration is really giving you a good value. It's freaking awesome. So I thought I'd scroll all the way down here just to make sure they don't have a random Liege quote on here, but I'm pretty sure they wouldn't. So, you know what? I'm okay with that. Are you okay with it? Price point, Restoration, killing it here. You know, I didn't expect this to be one of the biggest funders of the month, but it easily is going to be. And this one could be, you know, because we don't include Altered TCG, which is the top funder of the year so far. I don't include TCGs in the funding goals and the funding style of things. So anyway, then let's go over to FLOE. FLOE's killing it here from Fantasia Games, $400,000. If you missed my video while I was on vacation, I put it out on the day of launch. FLOE, baby. And so what you've got going on here with FLOE is sort of this open-esque dynamic between ice flows and islands, where you're using your workers traveling by boats over the ice flows, back and forth between them on those, collecting resources, going into caves, fighting monsters with a little bit of a die roll situation, and then going back and forth between that and the town to slowly upgrade your resource management, as you are required to not only have it increased in order to do things further in the game, but you actually have to have the resources full at the time of utilization, right? So if your cap, for example, on this resource in particular is 2, you have to have it at 2 in order to use the action to upgrade it one spot further, and then it sort of resets it, spends it all, and you have to do that simultaneously with all the resources that are available to you. And, you know, it's not the most complex game, but it doesn't have some of these things. And I kind of like this. This is a nice little graphic here if you're more of a visual learner. Sandbox, 4X, you know, no take that, not as much point salad. Slowly unlockable modularity. I think the biggest take-home point, I'd say, and they even talked about it in the letter that they sent me as, you know, a person who got to try out the prototype. They said, you know what, this game has expanded and expounded over the, you know, time that we've been developing it. Johnny Pack, shout out to you, bro. And so what you're seeing is an extension of this, and they allow you to incorporate it at different extents to your comfort level. And the biggest compliment I can give in that regard is that it all felt connected. It didn't feel disjointed. It didn't feel like there was a mechanic or an area that, you know, wasn't quite as fitting, I guess, if you will. It's expensive though, $70. That's more than I was expecting here. I wasn't, you know, having any clue, but with the modularity and the extensiveness of the stretch goals and what's in the game in the first place, it doesn't also surprise me. This is a game, if it went straight to retail, I'd say it's probably going to come out smaller. It's going to be lighter. And Fantasia, you know, is the parent company, if you will, and Pika is more of their family-friendly division that this game is being published under. Do you need the soundtrack? Probably not. Can you piecemeal the Monsters expansion? Probably down below. And so it's, again, how much and what do you want to deluxify in that as a whole? So overview, gameplay, unlocking system, you know, if you want to get more of this stuff progressing as you go along. And you know what? Take it as you will, because sometimes it's nice to have those slowly laid out in front of you. And I think it does a really good job incorporating all of that as well. So rules are on the page, tutorial, tabletop simulator, a bunch of people playing through it as well. You want game trays, you get it along that side in addition. And it gives you a little bit of the extras down here with the stretch goals, with the extra content that you're going to be getting here. Just more cards, more cards, more cards, which is great. I don't know anything about the Monsters expansion here. Innovative unlocking system, and so more of a co-op scenario. That's nice. I wouldn't mind playing this, actually. I wish I would have gotten to be able to try this as a co-op. That would have been a very interesting experience, because you know me, I'm a big co-op person as a whole. So, there you go. You're getting the stretch goals, which are going to make it worth it if you want to get it over the retail version as a whole. Oh, look, woo, there's me. I wasn't sure I'd actually be on the page because I'm a little bit late sometimes on getting these out. I'm more on the day of. And we'll talk about another video here that kind of did the same thing this past week. And thankfully, these people are nice enough to me that they, you know, don't bring me over the coals for doing that. But yeah, just it's a solid product. Again, the question is whether or not it's right for you, because it's also not going to change your mind if you're looking for something incredibly heavier, or if you're looking for something that's a little bit more, well, not open world-esque, or a little bit more direct Euro take that. It's not going to give you some of those things, but it's a great, solid game. And I will tell you right now, I wouldn't be surprised if it's near the top of my previewed, impressioned, prototyped crowdfunding games for 2024 by the end of the year. So there you go. Now let's go over here to Harry Potter Miniatures Adventure Game. Yeah, does that name sound familiar? It's because Night Models is putting out basically the only difference between this one and the one from like 6 years ago is that this is Wizarding Duels, and they've modified the gameplay somewhat, because the original game on Board Game Geek has a 5.5 rating. Do you know how not good you have to get a 5.5 rating on Board Game Geek. Like, the rules were horrible. People redid it. There's like a community supporting it. Secondary market, they FOMO'd the heck out of it at a retail side of things. The miniatures were brittle. People were just very unhappy. So now I guess this is kind of like a 2.0 version, which is funny because they don't actually really address the fact that this is kind of a revision of it. The Board Game Geek forums have next to no information. Like, 2 comments are like, hey, did you guys see the campaign, the new campaign? And when the other person's like, what campaign? So they FOMO'd. They put like a Voldemort and like a Harry Potter like special if you didn't buy like one of the bigger bundles in the first time. And they're doing sort of a similar thing here. The difference in this case is that you're only playing 3 rounds, and that this is going back and forth, activating each of your 3 models essentially 3 times. And you have these quests that you're going to be going for, and you're going to be drafting or having point spreads of your team in the first place with a line of sight type mechanic in a miniature skirmish style game with a hex-based system. And you're just going back and forth. But there's this sort of strange clash mechanism to determine whether or not you cast spells successfully, and that's maybe going to be the biggest make it or break it. And reading the rulebook, I can't really tell you how well that's going to work, because essentially what you're going to have is you're going to have cards, modifiers, abilities that are going to affect how effective your spell is in casting. So your casting spell might have, for example, in the rulebook, a -5 casting, and you need it to be greater than 0. This will make sense in a second. And so you play your cards, and you have these abilities, a Sword of Gryffindor or whatever it may be, right? That gives like a +2 to the spell casting. And then you draw the top card of your deck and flip it over, and it's going to have a clash number in the upper corner. All these cards will. And that gets added. And then other bonuses that you may have all get added. And so that determines it. But then if you don't like the one that's on the top of your deck, you can play one from your hand. In addition, you activate 3 of your characters, going back and forth to complete a round. And your character's actions are essentially move, advanced action, quick action. Quick actions are like basically hide or unhide and play a potion, and your advanced actions are all your spells and everything that can go along in that gamut. So do you want a bunch of exclusives? Because again, that's kind of what Night Models did with this, and they put out like 6 or 7 or 8 plus more expansions over the course of a couple of years. So you're seeing a lot of similar stuff, I think, right now. And how different are any of these characters? Does it really give you that much of a difference between all this stuff? Look at this stuff, guys. This is expensive, right? 35, 40 pounds, 35, 35. You know, is a map really going to be that much different? Player mats, you know, there's a lot of deluxifications here as a whole. This was their previous game, Catch the Snitch. I remember it. I don't even know how it was rated or what you thought of it in the past, but social goals to go along with it. The rulebook is there, like I said, to give you the summary of it, of how you're casting using these potions and obtaining these quest cards, because quest cards are the other ways that you're going to score points. Like, have one of your characters cast an unbreakable curse or unspeakable curse or whatever it is, right? And using the curse modifiers. The only English video of note is from Board Game Co. So that's not also a great sign that there's not a whole lot of other information out there. And again, like I said, there's absolutely nothing on Board Game Geek. So it makes me a little trepidatious. And if you're one of those people throwing in a couple $100 right now, good luck. I hope it works out for you. I hate that Kickstarter pops that up every time. The other big winner so far this week is Galactic Cruise. Again, at FLOE levels here. This is your first, most hyped, heavier Euro-style game of the year in the lines of the Lacerdas. It's probably made the rounds on the content creator side of things heavier than I've seen a lot of games, especially Euro-wise, in the past 1 to 2 years. And so it's really drummed up a good following. It's done really well so far. And it's heavier. It's heavy. You got to go into this looking as, this is a Lacerda type game. They're doing votes here that you can get little portions or segments of the game into it. And they give you a little bit of running down overview of this side of things. Again, you're getting blueprints, putting them in your shuttles, using your markets and your agendas to build developments, better improve the departments that you're going to be doing your action selection in. You're trying to advertise and get essentially tourists on your ships in the first place, launch them to the right areas, and get the upgrades and the bonuses that you need to outperform your opponents. And if you follow any of the heavy gamers, well, they're all on this page, so you can check it out. The rules book is there, a reference book, and a player aid. Whew! Right? Not kidding there on the heavy side of things. But again, just like with FLOE, where do you want to spend your deluxified extra, content money-wise? It's burning a hole in your wallet, right? Mine's going to Star Wars Unlimited this week, I think. That's a whole separate video. And if you want to pay $90, yeah, it's probably going to be, more than that in the retail market. Now, the issue is that, again, it's going to be $15 for the extra expansion. And if you only get the base game with some of these deluxifications and you want to get the expansion later, is it really going to be matching up that easily? And they have this middle management accommodations here as well if you want the other expansion. Wow, I didn't even realize there were 2 expansions. Whew. And that's just kidding. That's not even with deluxe. So realistically, you're talking $130 with 2 expansions here. And I have a hard time anytime endorsing expansions, whether it's FLOE, whether it's this or anything else, if you haven't played the game and know you love the game as well. So the interesting part here, though, is for $500, you can get everything from them. So they are going the Chip Theory Games model here as well. You get all future Kinson Key game releases, including upcoming games expansions, but not your optional component upgrades. But you still have to pay shipping. I mean, so it's basically your strategic level pledge. And I'm guessing there weren't a ton of those, or are they just letting anyone in who wants it? Yeah, there's 30 of those. And then there are 10 of these $1,000 ones. You get the prototype essentially. And then if you want to pay $1,500, another 10 filled that up. And there's none left on either of these higher ones as well. Wow, there's none left even here. There's only 30. So yeah, they're really copying it. And so I wonder if that's one of the things we'll see going forward. That's a whole nother video in and itself as well. So game trays, I have mixed feelings on some of the game trays I've gotten on crowdfunding. So I always feel strange, buying an insert essentially nowadays with the upgrades. I just actually got a retail game that I unboxed and unpacked with one of the kids that had absolutely no insert whatsoever. And it was like a whole bunch of tiles. So I just threw them all in the box. All of you OCD people in the comment section are going to hate me because I'll show you what it is later. But heavy, everyone previewing it, a few impressions. But again, I guess there's enough information out there and there's enough talk about it everywhere else that other people can hype it up for you and tell you whether or not it's right for you, because I can't distinguish some of the heavy Euros, but people like it, ? So check it out if you're one of those people, right? Cascadia rolling. Now, it'd be too long of a title if they actually put Rolling Rivers and Rolling Hills there, so we had to go with one or the other. This reminds me of sort of Terraforming Mars, like Ares Expedition versus Dice, where I really like both of them. They both fill a niche, even though they seem to occupy the same space in your head. And that's kind of how I look at this. And the only trouble I have with this is just like Railroad Inc., it kind of makes you FOMO both of them because they both have different dynamics and you can combine them to get more dynamic combination. All you're doing, roll your dice, get your tokens, complete your habitat cards, fill in your puzzle. So it's not going to give you anything necessarily different. You can see it's like a pre-constructed Cascadia board in the first place, checking stuff off, completing these, and just balancing out how you're creating your environment. And you're doing it over 20 rounds. So 20 rounds sounds like a lot, but it's not. Don't be fooled. They say flat out right here, both of them offer different dice, cards, and environment sheets. So, I mean, I'm really, really wanting this game. And the question is going to be, as we scroll down here from flat out, as someone who loves Cascadia, Landmarks wasn't quite as big a hit as I had hoped. What's the incentive to get both of these or either of these right now? I love the idea of this game. This is a perfect weight. My wife would love this game, folks. I have no qualms that this is going to end up in my collection. But the issue is, okay, print and play. Should I just get the print and play? Like, why not just get the print and play? Because each of them are $20 and $35 for both. I'm screwed. Well, I guess I know what I'm backing after this video. I was expecting this to be like 50. I didn't look at this page before scrolling through it for you guys. So the fact that it's only 35 for both of these as a perfect weight with, again, well, I kind of wish there was a little bit more promo there. As I mentioned earlier in the video, 8 promo cards doesn't do it, and this is 6 promo cards. I mean, I like that they're different, but how cross-compatible are they? I mean, they say you can mix and match, and I just worry about it being like a Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition expansion content where, like, you're going to have your certain favorites and you're going to go to your certain favorites as a whole. Oh, photos, board game photos. Oh, that's a whole nother industry. That's a whole nother video. That's going to get myself in trouble. Anyway, what are you doing though? How are you actually playing the game? I've done a whole diatribe on the campaign page as a whole. So what you're doing is you have 4 central dice and you have your own personal 2 dice. And so what you do is after you roll your dice, you choose one of your wildlife types to collect and record them on your sheet. After you do so, you take one of the dice actions and, well, get more animals and provide additional bonuses by the central die. You're going to be utilizing all of these then to complete the habitat cards that are out in front of you. And these are going to offer you discounts or bonuses to engine build, if you will, marking your environment sheet off, getting new elements, spatial puzzles, and combinations as you go along. So it's the perfect combination of things for me. And I'm going to be backing it. Now, again, like it's one of those where, you know what, maybe in, a year and a half, they might offer me a review copy. Maybe, if I'm lucky, or I just back it right now and say screw it and get it, because that's what I'll probably end up doing, because then I'll get it by the end of the year. So yeah, I guess I'll be doing that. And oh man, it's like the same people on all of the videos so far this week. That's great for them. That's awesome. I'm a little jealous there. Yeah, this one is going to be an absolute stunner hit for me. So I will be backing this and going along with Carnival of Chaos. So 2 completely different ends of the spectrum type of games, but that's what it is right now. It just reminds me I need to sell stuff. Next up, Etherstone. Again, this one's killing it. This is almost at 200% at the time of me filming this early in the week. And I'm really impressed by this one, but I don't also get the sense of the best flow. And there's not also a good, why should I get this now? They're deluxifying it. You're getting wooden tokens. But all you basically get with the description of this is that you have these cards. You're going to be drafting them in a 7-card manner to start out with your hand. Draft and pass until you get your 7. And then you're playing these cards down and then potentially clashing against threats. And you have a leader card, which can be included in the battle, which is going to have the amount of life that you have. And you're going to be grabbing victory tokens until the victory token pile runs out as you're gathering these victory points based on what you're defeating, as well as what the cards that you're playing and the combos and the bonuses and the actions are giving you in the first place. And I just don't know if I really see the why get it on crowdfunding like a couple of these others at this point. The main action mechanism that you're taking is you're utilizing these dice and you're gathering the resources in order to play the cards in your hand. But when these dice get rolled at the beginning of the turn, round, whatever it may be, there's going to be 5 of them and they're all going to be different colored. And which die you grab doesn't matter with a number on it necessarily as much as the color, because then it gives you 2 of those resources and then you can utilize any cards that you have out in order to play their bonuses or take their actions in the first place. And then you can use those resources that you gathered from the color of the die to play additional cards to build your tableau. And that's it. But this is why you're getting the deluxified here, right? Is we get down here and you're getting the deluxe box, you're getting the wooden Etherstones and metal coins. And again, I don't really know that I want some of this other stuff, right? This is a light-driven card-playing game for well over $100 now, because they're offering you 4 promo cards, they're offering you playmats and a novel. And I'm not necessarily enthralled by that. Probably going to get a few more promo cards here as well. But I don't know. Like, there's not a good sense of flow. There's not a good sense of what the combos actually look like on the page whatsoever. You can sleeve it. You can playmat it. You can dice tray it. You can get a life dial. So they're giving you all of the deluxifications you could ever want as a whole. This was one I was really hoping to try out beforehand to get a better sense of it, because I've got a couple others that are coming from crowdfunding that I just am blanking the name on. From the designers of Pagan, Fate of Roanoke. I backed their other latest game that's being delivered right now, Wormgold, their company. So I don't know. This was one that I don't know. It's very expensive for what it is, and for a deluxified, not typical deluxified game, I'm gonna have to try and wait and see a little bit more content. This one might be try to pick up in the secondary market as a trade later on, but I really like the art. I really like the design scheme, and so I'm really gonna be interested to see what else they've got going on. And I hate it when it does that. Next up, GlassCannonUnplugged news. As of the day of me filming this, they said I'm getting a prototype, so I'll have a video out hopefully before the end of the campaign. But it's got almost $700 freaking thousand at the time of me filming this. That's freaking great. And now, if you're not familiar with this gives me vibes of sort of their previous game, Apex Legends, where you've got like the skirmish style, but now done in a tower defense meets Dead of Winter vibe. And what I mean by that is you've got terrain, you've got elevation, you've got jumping, moving, parkouring across, trying to win scenarios, not campaigns. Freaking awesome, right? Like individual scenarios, trying to complete objectives without being overwhelmed or overrun or having anybody die in your group, because if one person dies, you lose. And it's going to be a little bit of, just weapon-based combat, fighting, action, taking out the bad guys as you go along, trying to achieve your objective with exposure tokens and exposure dice that you're going to be having to do depending if you're moving or using a utility, and having to mitigate that potentially as you're going along. And at first when I was looking through this page, 60 euros was very expensive for 4 runners. I was like, 4 characters? Wow, that's not very many. And then I looked at this and I said, wow, this is going to give you an expansion as well. But I mean, that's 110. That's almost double the amount. But then you start getting down to the stretch goals here and you see that you're getting a bunch of other stuff, right? A bundle here, new infected right there, another bundle there, a new enemy, and then a new runner, and then a new enemy, and then another pack. So you're getting a bunch of actually extra stuff here as well that's being included. And they give you little updates here on the bundles and the airdrops and things like that with the expansion content here with the windmill, which freaking looks awesome. Totally like the Everdell tree and the fact that you don't need it, but it looks freaking cool, just like with Apex Legends and the terrain. So all this extra stuff really makes that lower pledge level actually incredibly worth it. Another runner here, so you're almost doubling the amount of runners probably by the time you get the game with the stretch goals. So if you're looking at this, the base game with a lot of these bigger miniature boxes in the first place is always the best deal. But essentially what you're doing is you're taking your actions, activating all of your runners, and then doing a night phase, a day phase, night phase, and then that's going to include the exposure, that's going to include the bad guys moving around, and that's going to be having to try and mitigate and not get caught or, killed. Pull up the rulebook here for a second. There's fatigue, there's boosts, there's momentum that you're going to be utilizing, as well as environmental features you're going to be dealing with of spawn points of the infected, fire, jump pads, loot, throwing spears, UV spots. I mean, this is just kind of giving you plethora of options, but allowing you to really play the game how you want to. And so for me personally, I like games like this. I'm hoping that when I get my hands on the prototype, I'll give you more details and more insight in the first place. And I was a little worried when they just said to use the term assembling there, but it's buildings, not miniatures. So all over that, different types of biters and infected here as well. So you're getting 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, plus the 1 or 2 that we saw get unlocked upstairs on the top of the page as well. So, I mean, this just is cool, and it reminds me very much of the combination, like I said, of Dead of Winter and Apex Legends. So if you have any affiliation with the IP, I don't know if this is going to do it for you or not, but it seems kind of cool. Now that seems very fragile. I'd be a little worried about that with kids, but if you can offer a new type of just kind of cool stuff to go along with it, fall damage, as long as you don't make it too complicated, right? Like that's the thing I worry about with something like this: ledges, fall damage, holding on, jumping. Like if you make it very straightforward, very intuitive, that's awesome. Underground expansion, little exclusive markers there, you don't need them. Kyle Crane expansion, I don't even know who that is. And acrylic standees, oh, frickin' acrylic standees. Glass Cannon Unplugged. Now we're really friends. The fact that you did acrylic standees, man, that looks awesome. And and that would be really cool. Like, people love miniatures, but the coloration on something like this with the terrain, I'd be all over. So, yeah. Payment pledges, and that's not a thing I'm a fan of, as I've mentioned with the Game Found Easy pledge, but there you go. It's gonna be expensive though. Not necessarily out of line with the Apex Legends by any means, but if Apex Legends is as good as, or well thought of in general speak, as Frostpunk was, Dying Light should probably be no less. And so it's just kind of which one of these is right for you, because this is definitely a type, and I'm that type. Are you? Next up, we got Fled from the designer of Feudum. This is actually a surprisingly heavy, crunchy tile laying game where you're trying to maneuver your little meeple through this land, trying to escape into one of these little green garden escape areas right here through the use of sort of multi-use tiles, because these tiles are going to have actions and artifacts and items that are going to allow you to go through various sides of your prisons in the first place, because you have to line up these tiles on the side of your conjoined area. You have the warden's room on the side here, which has a whistle that's going to be slowly going across. That's going to correlate to not only when it's going to be easiest to sneak out, but also what's going to allow you to get contraband a little bit easier. You're going to have warden meeples that are wandering through the halls that are manipulatable by other players, and that's probably going to be the biggest contentious point, is that the wardens will go after you, and if you're not careful, you actually get a shackle card on your little action tableau, and that's going to limit you in how well you can work around. So it's relatively straightforward, actually. The iconography I was a little concerned about, but really works out once you do it. You've got like 4 different types of entrances and exits that you're matching up, and you need to utilize the right types of, as it showed you there in the little GIF, the icons that are going to match. Like the doors need keys, the tunnels need spoons, things like that. So it's probably, again, what I'd about expect at this point. $40, $50, including an expansion. I have no idea what the expansion is. $70 for a playmat. But it's going to be a little bit heavier overall. It's going to be a little bit thinkier, because essentially you have like 5 tiles in your hand and you choose like 1 or 2 of them, and you have to choose the other 2 or 3. I forget exactly the number off the top of my head of how you want to utilize them. Are you going to discard them in order to put one into your, sort of storage that can be used later on, or that can get you bonus victory points depending on if you are one of the people that can escape, or if no one escapes before all of the tiles get used. And as a thinkier, sort of more strategic tile laying game, it also doesn't overstay its welcome, which is what I was a little bit concerned about as well. So again, I apologize to Mark here, because my video didn't come out until the morning of this launching, and so I know that's why I'm not on here whatsoever, and so I owe him a mea culpa more than anything else. But it's about 1/3 of the way funded, so we'll see where it goes. It does have a little bit higher funding goal than I was expecting at $50,000, but I think that's, again, it's a true funding goal, so I give them kudos for putting it out there. So hopefully it doesn't cause any issues, and hopefully we see them do well by the end of the week and into next week. Next up, we talked about this a couple weeks ago on the news roundup. We knew this is coming. This is Ready, Set, Bet, the High Roller Edition. Basically, it's a deluxified version of it, and if you want to spend $90 on this party style up to 8-player game, you can. It's got a lot of money raised. A lot of people like this. A lot of the highest profile board game people love this. But the one thing I'll say on this more than anything else, again, is that just because other people like it doesn't mean you'll like it, right? Just when I talked about Dying Light, or just when I talked about Cascadia or FLOE, if I like it, that's great. If somebody else likes it, that's great. Are you going to like it? Or are you going to have the group for it? Because essentially, you need to have a little bit of a group party dynamic going on with this. And if your group doesn't like that style of things in the first place, this probably isn't going to change your mind either from that aspect. And so what you're doing is you're just rolling dice and moving horses based on the die results. Until one of them crosses the end, you just place your bets as you go, just simultaneously, continuously doing it, because you have different chip markers that you're just going to be able to place down on all of these various bets and odds. And they're giving you deluxified everything with wooden horse meeples, a neoprene mat, and better looking dice in the first place. So yeah, I mean, it's cool. If this is one of your favorite games, I mean, this is probably going to give you an even better aesthetic and an even better feel on the table in the first place. But again, if you're not like super dynamic, and this just reminds me of Long Shot, sort of a miniature version of Long Shot, if you will, it was fine. I also have a weird relationship with gambling. I'm not a big fan of gambling in general in real life. I'm not a big fan of gambling in general in board games. Yes, I know, a little bit of a hypocrite probably with the stuff I'm okay with and not okay with, but we all have that stuff too. So, right? I mean, like, that's my bias. And so this is a game I would love to play somebody else's copy of. And so I'm not looking to get it necessarily for me, but you have all of these different things that you can do in terms of the horses and the bonus moves. If you roll more than one of a number in a row, so if you roll 5 twice, they get 2 bonus moves, but if it's a 6, they only move 1 space. So obviously the longer shot the odds, the better rewards they get. And so you're just trying to figure out what you do and how much money you can win based on it all. And Noel Rolls Bard and Dice Tower and everybody that's big has a video on here, so you can check them out as well. Do you want an app to go along with it? Do you want to spend $100+ on this game? You know what? If you play it a lot and you love it, it might be worth it. But again, love it for you, not love it because other people love it, because that's what I also just saw with Earthborn Rangers, right? Like, all of a sudden everyone wants Earthborn Rangers because, but is it right for you? That's the question. Man, I'm so mad at myself for this one. Chiba Koya, the designer, actually reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to, talk about Ostia and the expansion? And I didn't get back to him in time because I'm an idiot, because I suck at returning emails. And this is the new expansion, Pirates, to go along with the original game. And if you're familiar with Ostia in the first place, or Aqua Garden, well, you know that you get a better price on crowdfunding from these Japanese games, period. The standard retail for them overseas and shipped is going to be a lot more. So as much as this may look like overall, it's going to be guaranteed a better deal than what you would get otherwise later. And the question is, again, do you want all the extra stuff? It looks like we have Merchant, Patronus, as well as a treasure set and a pirate set. It's a lot of money for it. And again, gosh, I'm such an idiot. I should have really been doing this one. And so it uses a mandala mechanic that you're going around and utilizing the actions at the various spaces in the port. And you get to basically now just get to repel pirates as well. Just like with the 5 sections that you're going to be utilizing, there are treasure chests that's going to be triggered. And each game is going to start with asymmetric cards that give your players unique abilities to gain resources and supporters and victory points in different ways. Like I said, start in a place, gain the resources, take all your ships, move them around in a clockwise section, perform the actions in the section where your last ship goes, and as you go along, well, you take turns until the end game triggers. So it's giving you a little bit more of a good thing. And I'm really interested in this one. This is one that has been on my radar since the first time it came around, but I just never obtained it. So do you want a second chance at it? Just like with Aqua Garden. And it's blowing up as well this time too. I mean, $200,000 for Japanese designer and Japanese publisher at this point on crowdfunding, by far and away the biggest one out there. So if you're interested, if you have any issues whatsoever, this is probably the one to look at, the one to consider. And wow, there's a ton of content. So there is plenty of video to look at as a whole. And you can even get some of the Aqua Garden stuff, which honestly is probably a really good price, actually, again, considering. And we talked about Biohack. I did Biohack, and there's an upcoming one called Enclosure, which I just talked about as well recently on the most recent crowdfunding on news roundup video. Pirates add Disgrace, they add Treasure Chest, they add a new endgame scoring, victory condition, and trigger. So is it right for you? Go watch some of these gameplay videos, because as I said, there are tons of them. And give it a look-see, because this is the type of thing also, as much as I critique crowdfunding and say this is a small indie publisher and you wouldn't be able to get this otherwise. So, you know what? Support the ones you want. Support the ones that you want to see succeed. Go ahead. Next up, the Royal game. One of the old games that they've done, sort of remastered. They've adapted it to a modern version and we've made it. And I've seen several people selling this online as well. And so it's like an abstract style game where you spawn your little tokens here based on the die rolls of the tips of the dice here, the D4s, if you will, based on whatever's showing. And depending on what combination of the two of them is showing, depends on where you can spawn, how you can take your actions. And you do sort of a little bit of trying to get across the board and win the game. But you can also have a more modern version where you have to hold 4 of the different locations on the board in the first place. And it's just kind of go somewhere and take somebody's spot, essentially. Now, this is a much less deluxe version, much less carved version that I've seen than the other versions online previously. And if you want to get it for, just over $30, you can get it from that aspect. A little bit of extra miniatures instead of those little tokens or coins or whatever they were, plastic pieces. You can do that for figurines as well, but it's going to cost you $50. And if you want a stuffy to go along with it, you can get that as well. So that's kind of what it's got for the playing pieces, the rulebook, the figurines, and everything else. So I don't really get the greatest sense reading the rulebook, so I'd really actually recommend you watch the how to play video here more than anything else if you want to get the best sense of what spawns where, depending on the die roll combinations, and then the differences between the more modern reimagined game and the traditional game is mostly just how you're moving backwards, forwards, and everything else in between. So that's it. That's pretty much all you need to know about So if you like old abstract games with a little bit more strategy, check it out. Now, Superclub Rivals football manager game by the people, I think it says, that brought you the original Superclub soccer game. Again, the only problem with this is there's absolutely no rulebook. So in case you actually want to know how this plays, you're better off looking at the written review that is linked to down below. There's no rulebook. There is one video as well that you can check out. But again, it's some combination of snake drafting your players to the 3 positions, and the 3 positions are indicated by the colors of the cards that the players are on, green, red, and yellow, and then taking time in between the manager seasons, gathering your income, and drafting or buying more players in the transfer window before rinsing and repeating. How are the battles, quote-unquote, games done? Well, you play basically best of 3 in each of these series, and if you win one of the battles, quote-unquote, then you get a goal. And you just go on. And if you want to pay for, again, about $50+ here, you can get it with 3 expansions as well. And if you only want the regular version, it's going to cost you about $30. Apart from that, though, again, I don't have a clue how this flow is on the page. They just tell you, well, you pick your side, draft, and prepare with a little bit of bidding. Here are the 3 battles that I mentioned, and that's about it, right? So check out the videos if you want, if you need to know more. I mean, I always like the appeal of football, soccer style of games, but I just haven't found one that's been a great, super good fit for me. I'm just not sure I'm a sports-based tabletop game person. Just it doesn't emulate it for me in that sense, but this is looking like something different. It's going to be quicker than your old version of Superclub in the first place, so that's why it's out and funded, well, almost 5 times its funding goal at this point, so check it out. Next up, Relicblade Cursebreaker, $70,000, doing really well for a miniature-based spell-slinging skirmish game. You want to know how it plays? Too bad! Doesn't have any actual info on the page itself. You can click here and see what the actual pledge levels are if you don't have any of it in the first place, but it doesn't actually tell you anything. All it says is 2x2 play area, 1 to 4 players, strategic magic system that rewards cleverness and not just a slog. Completely new rule set with complexity and complete gameplay experience. But that's it. I mean, that's it. It offers you a couple new expansions down here, a few mini stretch goals. But there you go. I guess people like it because miniature-based skirmish spell slinging game, but no info, no rule book, not a whole lot of content. Surprising that it's getting this much. It must have a good following, but again, you want to get me interested in it, I need to know more. And it'd be really nice if it was on the page, but there you go. Next up, Champions of 100 Halls co-op strategy card game-ish. Comes with pre-constructed hero decks that are going to be mixed and matched with scenarios or locations that you're going to be playing through as deck within realms that are also going to be mixed and matched as well to set up all your combos to go against enemies to, well, essentially win the game. And through the scenario-based system, as you're taking your turns, the scenario goes first, then the realm goes, and then you get to go and you take your 3 actions. You get to play a card, then you get to activate a card, and then you get to draw a card. That's the basic gist of it. I mean, there's a 7-page rulebook over here that talks about some of the asymmetry and the complexity and play style of these individual decks, because you're getting like 6 in the base game through the expansion. Runs you through some of the card types and the terms, but it's really text heavy here, as you can see. So if you want to do, you just do exactly what I just said, right? You do the realm, you do the scenario, and then you rinse and repeat and taking your turn. Can't really say much more than that, but it gives you a little bit more video content of how it's actually going to look. And I'd really recommend, again, watching the full gameplay here more than anything else, so you can check it out. But it also has a dedicated solo mode, so if you're a solo junkie, there you go. The rest of this page is just showing you a little bit more of the asymmetry and the actual images that are going along with it. Reward tiers are going to be about $40 for the regular, $50 for the extra, and $60 for even more extra as a whole. So a little bit of stretch rewards as it's funded better, and we'll kind of see where it goes as we move on. But yeah, there you go. Champions of 100 Halls. Next up, Nexus Unsanctioned, the big box expansion, $35,000 of a $10,000 funding goal. This is another combat-based skirmish game with a 52-page rule book. If you're not familiar with it, it's a dice-chucking, tactically driven, now with pre-painted miniatures, mutations, as well as terrain that you're going to be interacting with, as well as hazards on the map. And this is just offering you more cards, more columns, more terrain, more creatures that you're going to be going up against, as well as some status markers, I guess, right? This one is going to be well outside my depth to summarize in a short span, because it takes more of the skirmish approach with an arena style combat and gives you, again, 50 pages worth of content that you're going to be aware of. But it's $90 for the unsanctioned expansion, and if you want to get the retail, it's going to cost you over $200. So that's a lot of money for a game that I wasn't quite completely aware of prior to this. And I love that people are emphasizing the pre-painted miniatures, but nowadays, after the Street Fighter miniatures game disaster for me, I'm not interested in aesthetics. I want to know what makes this game pop in terms of gameplay. And I'm going to leave that to you. You need to go figure this one out. There's a lot going on. Last one standing or accumulated cred points at the end of the game as a whole. They give you a little bit more of the overview here as you're commanding, watching out for hazards, embracing the strategic mayhem of not only adapting but evolving your characters as you go along. And yeah, they're pre-painted. So if you like that sort of thing and you're willing to pay a premium for it, again, do you. but it's going to be a pretty penny. It's going to be expensive. There's a few videos on here that will give you a better overview. But again, it's another more skirmish-based style game. So how do you feel about those in a whole? Chroma Arcana. We talked about this one. I did the video going along with Massive Verse. And you know what? Let's talk about it here. TCG style play with all of the boosters. You got the asymmetry with the different colors with a couple expansions that you can add on layers, and you can mix and match depending on how you want to do it. They've got an active play area, a bringing from your hand to the inactive area, and then requiring you to spend additional cards as a resource in order to take them from your inactive area to your active area. And just like with Exceed, if you run out of cards in your deck, you're going to start to take damage. So this game really plays, and it means you have to be aggressive in this style and manner. And there are 3 different types of cards that you're going to be managing as a whole. You got your minions, you got your spells, and you got sort of your third one that I'm completely blanking on off the top of my head, right? But you basically your items essentially is what it is. And everything is in one box. I think it's clever. In a different way, it reminds me of World Breakers, the other 2-player game that I talked about last year and the year before as well. Just a slightly different smattering. It's doing something different, but again, it's one of those, your mileage is going to vary because of how dependent you may be on a pre-constructed versus constructing your own as you go along. The artwork's fantastic. The mechanisms are clever, but it's not going to appeal to everybody as well. Like, I'd love to see a little bit more what the co-op is going to offer. And, you know, it's got different tyrants that you can go up against as well. So the Duelist Pledge, again, with the playmats as well as the additional, I believe, decks as well. So, yeah, how to play. They run you through here. You can get the stretch goals. They're going to get some funding here. Premium. So non-gameplay content. Rulebook is on the page. And there's plenty of other overviews that you can check out here as well. This is really going to be kind of cool. I like this one. Fully cooperative gameplay, although it's solo mode. So, okay. Well, I probably wouldn't like it as much. But, okay, I'm completely okay with that. And they've done a fantastic job putting this out there. And so if you're interested in this as a different type of mage dueling game, I'll stand by that. That it's not like anything else, but it's going to be a little bit of construction. And how do you feel about constructed versus pre-constructed? So 55 grand, they're killing it. There you go, Chroma Arcana. Next up, 18 España. This is an 18XX game. Are you familiar with the economics or train laying style of games? Well, what makes this one different? I love the fact that they put this right up here. You're going to have 2 different sides of a map, a northern and a southern part, and they're going to be connected by bridges. There are going to be 4 bridges going across them, and you're going to be selecting companies. There's a plethora of companies in this game that you're going to be choosing from in different ways that they're going to be interacting and available to you. 4 out of 6 of the north, 6 out of 9 of the south, and then 6 out of the 9 of the minor ones as well. Apart from that, what makes it any other different? Do you like 4Xs in the first place? Again, the aesthetic is just side, but people love the gameplay, so take that for what you will. Big rule book here as well. Again, folks, not my area of interest from any whatsoever. I remember 18 Lilliput coming out as the sort of intro version, if you will, that people actually thought was relatively good, and 36 euros seems like it's actually reduced from a price standpoint than what it was originally. Now, you're also talking $20 or 20 euros for shipping to America. So this is much better for you folks over in Europe as a whole. So again, not going to embarrass myself with anything further, but talking about it because it's doing well. So 18 España. Next up, Grail Games 2024 collection. Talked about this one on a news video a couple weeks ago. You're getting 4 of their games, a couple redesigns, a couple re-releases, and a new one. Bottle Imp is one back all the way from 1995. Then you're going down here. You've got Bottle Imp, as I mentioned, millions of dollars. Then 101, which again is an old one that's gotten a bunch of rewards in the past, and a mini expansion to go along with that, as well as Tango. So gives you a little bit of an overview here about how you're playing only with 18 cards, and you're going head to head in a binary showdown, ones or zeros with 101. See, I wasn't kidding, like old reviews, right? Vice Tower with the Game Boy Geek, that's how old that video is, right? And Modern Classics is what they're calling them. Millions of dollars here is a hidden role negotiation game going on a heist as a team. And so 3 to 9, 3 to 8 players. And shut up and sit down. Took a look at that one. Tango is the brand new one, 2-player only trick-taking game. And you get your turns by playing your cards, but some cards are known to your opponent, which causes, well, a tense back and forth, if you will, a la, hence the name of the rules, if you will. So why pledge? Well, some of these you just might not be able to get very well or very easily on the secondary market. Again, trick-taking, 2 players, very tough for me to endorse just for my own personal bias and preferences, but Grail Games is coming back to us with a combination here, and they're doing really well, actually, all things considered, for these lighter style card games, because you know, $10,000 with these low pledge levels of like $15 is not insignificant there. So if you want one, if you want a bunch, again, don't buy them all just to save more. Spending more to save more is still spending more, but Grail Games 2024 card game collection. Now, I talked about this one as well, The Presence. This was my sleeper hit of the week when I talked about it 2 weeks ago, and it's the Victorian horror board game Betrayal House on the Hill, where you don't know if the ghost is helping you, hurting you, or just trying to mess with you as you go along. So this has a little bit more of a one versus all asymmetric vibe, but it's kind of doing something cool, and I kind of like the aesthetic as a person who usually doesn't dig into the horror side of things, right? So as you're going along, visitors are trying to slowly reveal and locate each of the secrets of the spirit's past. As you flip them over, you find them, you get clues, but the spirit wins in its own hidden goals, which may also, as I mentioned, the one versus all style of things, you may be playing with the players, you may be playing against them. And you gotta kind of figure that out as well. You're exploring, you're flipping over, you're having action unique cards as you go along, and then you can also speak to your fellow visitors if they're separate, but not necessarily with other people. So what you're going to be doing is slowly revealing these cards based on the 4 trauma cards that you're going to be trying to get flipped over, the secrets of the ghost's past. And you're going to be gathering clue cards, slotting them under, and getting enough quote-unquote trauma in order to essentially unlock them. And apparently also is going to be a combination. You can do either scenario-based or campaign-driven, although you can just get the scenario-based and have some of the unlocks if you choose not to do the campaign as well. The spirit is going to be having their own script, top and a bottom part, that's going to override and potentially even complicate the visitor's end game scoring victory condition, instead of just having to have those 4 secrets revealed, but also requiring them to have a secondary goal done as well. A little bit of unlock here in addition, if you will, a little deluxification, a little bit of just extra gameplay content, and plenty of, well, content you can enjoy down here as well. So it's about a 30-page rulebook. It's also going to be heavily player dependent with 3, 4, or 5, changing not only the composition of the decks based on the clues, the fears, as well as the hidden spirits secret cards that you're going to be throwing out there in the first place. You're setting them up across the board in the areas that are appropriate, and then you're going to be drawing them in order to take your actions on a turn-by-turn basis. There are also, if we scroll down further, specific rules for if you're alone, actions you can take versus having anyone else in the room with you, the can and cannot right here. Communication is always heard by everybody. There's no sneaking around from that side of things. And, well, you just got to deal with having a potential one versus all, not knowing what side of things that the spirit may be on. The alignment that they use here is hope and dread, revealing how close you're following your script. And so you're going to have to be very careful about how you're managing that, as well as darkness and light in the rooms as a whole. You have your own personal action deck cards that are going to be taking your actions on a turn-by-turn basis, discarding them, shuffling them, rinsing and repeating. Again, this is another indie small publisher. That's the main reason you're going to help them or back them at this point, because it's doing something different as a whole. And it's going to cost you between about $50 and $60 before shipping. And they say you still may not get it for almost a year and a half. And that's a long time away, actually, because we're talking July 2025. For a game that doesn't have miniatures, you know, okay, I'd rather underpromise and overdeliver, but that's pretty far out, so we'll see what they can do, and they're already killing it again with almost $70,000, so we'll see what else they got in store for us between now and the end. Next up, En Route. Again, already funded $17,000. It's a flip and write. So essentially on the first player's turn, you lay a card face up indicating a certain coordinate, as well as a certain number of tourists you're going to be selecting based on, I believe, one of the 4 different ones that are available to you. And then person to your left and to your right, each lays a card face down. You flip them both up simultaneously. You get to choose which one of those 2 you want to utilize, because in the combination of those 2 cards is going to then allow you to choose where on the map you are placing down those tourists indicated by the colored cards in the first place. But the 2 numbers can be done either horizontal, vertical, horizontal, however you want to. So there's 2 separate spaces that you're going to be doing on your individual map, and you're going to be creating a route to travel from where you were previously to the route where you just put pedestrians or tourists, I believe. You have 6 different maps in the base game, 2 extras to go along with the Kickstarter exclusive edition here. And you get your gold cards that are going to be just alongside as additional ways of making this a little bit more complex. It gives me a little bit of vibe of let's make a bus route, and just a little bit more rinsing, repeating, a little bit more asymmetry, because that's probably the biggest problem with that game in a whole. So do you like this? Get a little more exclusive content, get a little bit of different roll and write, if you will, to go along with this. As you can see here, the dice indicating the symbols and the tourists that you're going to be rolling and the locations. So that's what you've got going on there. Solo as well as multiplayer, and some unlocks to go along with it as we get further and further into March. So that's the gist of it right there. You can see as you're crossing off, you're upgrading your gray landmarks, you're choosing the location, drawing your tourists on it, drawing your routes, and you can only draw them in L shapes or straight lines, earn your points for your landmarks and crossing them, and it shows you again the differences between all the cities that are going to be available to you. A couple videos down here by all of some popular people. Rulebook, which is relatively straightforward, and that's everything. So the price point is actually not too bad, but again, for a roll and write, it's a little expensive, but again, indie game, indie publisher, so you're probably not going to see it widely available otherwise, but $35 before shipping is a little bit of a heavier penny for this type of game in the first place. But if you like it, go for it. 17 grand raised so far en route. Speaking of roll and writes, we'll do a print and play roll and write, and that's Aquarius here at already almost $3,000 of $54 as the funding goal. It's a roll and write, folks. You're rolling, you're crossing off resources, making your little engine build depending on how you're crossing them off, bringing animals and ornaments and vegetation into your aquarium, and collecting other resources to help keep it clean, as well as to gain victory points. So asymmetric goals, as well as your individual characters to make it a little bit easier for you in some way, shape, or form. That's it. That's what you need to know. You get the pledges down here for the print and play. You can also get their previous games in addition, a few stretch goals that they've already hit, and it's going to cost you about $5. So if you want one of the other ones, it's also about $5, language independent in addition. Just wanted to highlight here, Aquaris. Then, since we were just talking about Chroma Arcana, we covered Massive Verse, the fighting card game in the style of Pocket Paragons from Solus previously as well. But again, this one, just like with Chroma Arcana, gotten $32,000 of its $20,000 funding goal. I'd say this is a more heavy-driven combo, counter-driven game than Pocket Paragons was originally, for me, at least when I played the Acquisitions Incorporated version. Again, it's fast. It's paper, scissors, rock, lizard, Spock, if nothing else. And you've got like 5 to 7 different types of cards in your hand that are going to be utilized, and some of them are going to combo in a paper, scissors, rock manner. Some are going to be the TKO versus the resting, because you can only gather your cards back up if you play the rest card, but if you play the rest card at the wrong time, your opponent can just KO you in one hit. So you have to be very careful on the timing of that, and you're countering to gather energy to get an asymmetric power that is going to be ability that can be utilized as a one-off or an active depending on how you play it or what character you are. There's some asymmetry in these games, but there's really only a few cards to go along with it, and it's very random, it's very chaotic, it's very play again once you lose and play it again and again, because it really only is about 5 minutes. And if you want more of it, well, you can get the $19 one here. You can get 2 of them for $19 each, and you can get a little bit of an extra character pack as well here with some hollow foils and some stretch goal characters. Their previous editions you can see all along these lines. I played the Acquisitions Incorporated one, so I like this one better than the Acquisitions Incorporated. Hey, look, there's my video. I wasn't expecting that to be on this page. It's a really simple, straightforward concept. Choose a card from your hand, see if your opponent counters it, do damage back and forth. You only got like 10 hit points or less, and sometimes you just want quick fillers that are not too overhead heavy, and it's not going to be perfect strategy, but if you want quick, you want easy, and you want just sometimes some fun chaos, that's what Massive Verse and this Pocket Paragon style things from Solus Game Studios is giving you. So there you go. Again, not my folks, gives me more of a it gives me a little bit of vibe of let's make a bus. So then we have Ascending Empires, the Zenith Edition. Play to Z, put this out, 4X, very short time frame. Tech tree dice rolling new edition of this game that you may or may not be familiar with sort of a Catacombs-esque vibe, flicking your fleet across a playmat, yes, a playmat through quadrants that are going to have a number of planets that are inhabitable based on the color. If you get them into those areas, it allows you to then place your troops into those areas and then utilize those to build structures, to get more technology, as well as to score end game victory points. This is going to be a deluxe version though, and that's why you may or may not want to risk picking it up, because you're getting more miniatures to get some more height, to give them more table presence. Do you need that? And again, what is a retail edition potentially for something like this going to look like? Now with Play to Z being new, we'll see. I mean, this is an expensive game. I love the idea of this, but $110, I'll be honest with you, this is more than I thought. I just missed out. They had already sent out all their prototypes, so I didn't have a chance to get one to talk to you guys about firsthand, but they go through, again, as the 4X spacefaring flicking catacombs-esque game, exploring around, exploiting those, putting those resources and troops down, expanding to the other 4 quadrants that there are total, including your home quadrant that you start out with, and then going and fighting in between when you land on other planets. And you have to actually take out the starships before you can actually take out the bases. The rules there, a couple big videos here if you want to have more interest there. And then it gives you, again, what you're getting here as a whole, right? The miniatures. That's what you're mainly getting and you're paying a price for here. The question is, and this one kind of gives me vibes of like Foundations of Rome, where you may get a cheaper retail version, you may not. Or it may be with Foundations of Metropolis coming out, you know, years down the line. So how do you feel about that? That's everything on the page, though. Check out the rulebook. It's not as bad as I thought. It was about 20 pages long, but it gives a lot of nuance there so you can get a good sense of it. But again, flicking in 4X, is it for you? That's the question you got to ask yourself. Then, Meeple Inc. Back over to GameFound, $114,000. This is like the equivalent of what Millennium Blades is for TCGs and CCGs for the board game heavy Euro side of things. Company here, I'm going to mispronounce them, so we're not going to try and pronounce their name, but they are putting this out. And this one seems to have some hype behind it. There's some very, 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 very positive quotes about this being a very tongue-in-cheek game of building your own board game, designing it component-wise, as well as mechanic-wise, and strategizing what aspects of the Euro modernization you're going to utilize in a canvas-like deluxeified version, because not only do you have easels that you're going to be doing, but actual boxes you're going to be putting together as representations of the games you're making, including this shelf. Yes, you actually get the shelf. I mean, maybe we're jumping the shark a little bit here. I mean, Everdell Tree was one thing. This is a whole nother. So do you want this thing? All right, I wasn't kidding. Miniature board game shelf, wooden easels, metal trophies, acrylic standees. Like, this is it too meta? Golden pairs? Anyway. I don't know. This is an action-based selection system with a heavy Euro component, and I can't give you a good summary of this. It's about 20 to 30 pages of a rule book that is a little bit dense. It's probably one of the most dense this week, but it gives you a little bit of GIF overview here. You're hiring these employees as you're going around creating the games physically, not only, but also earning the awards for the games in the first place. And there's enough stuff on the page from bigger name people that are going to give you better opinions than me. But again, looks like it actually is mostly preview. So, you know, when a couple quotes are talking about components, like, that's not the quotes I want to be seeing on a page. That's not the quotes I want to be seeing on a page. I'm just, as a backer, right? Like, I assume good quality across the board, but it is what it is. So, people like it, tongue-in-cheek, but I have no idea. Golden Pair expansion, again, tongue-in-cheek. So how meta inside gaming gamer are you in this sense? If you want it, go for it. I have no idea how this compares. I have no idea if these mechanisms are going to hold up. I mean, I think it is. I think it would be, but I can't really assess this one as well as some of the others out there. So for those of you heavier Euro junkies, let me know what you think of this one. Is it doing something unique? Is it doing something worthwhile? 6 players always worries me a little bit, especially over the 4-player count, about how much drag there could be, but I mean, $100,000 is still $100,000, folks. Now we're hopping over to Backer Kit for the first time this month, the second or third time this year. Anyway, this is a campaign that I had no clue about, but I got linked to it from Board Game Geek. So this is Realm Runners. And essentially you've got this multi-area lane situation going on where you move your heroes progressively through them with hit points and playing loot cards per round, followed by a movement and magic card. And it defeats minions as you go across in a cooperative sense, but it's also a last one standing, sort of semi-cooperative. And you get to the boss and everybody teleports there and you all get your chance to take out the boss using a combination of die rolling, the loot cards, and the availability. And they say it's based off of one of their favorite mobile games, and they just have incorporated it into the tabletop, I guess. And you can customize how many of these little boards connect to change the game length dynamic. And if you want deluxeified, and if you really want the neonified game as a whole, I mean, that's what they're going for here. But it's expensive. If you want to deluxeify it, you can. But again, it's got a ton of money for being more of a relatively straightforward concept. But they clearly have an other outside board game following, because some of this other stuff is just, you know, what you'd expect to see with like t-shirts and screen prints and, you know, pins. So say what you will. It is what it is. They're raising money. Somebody out there has a good following and can raise money on crowdfunding, so more props to them. It's going to be lighter overall, so just be aware of what you're getting into, and that's Realm Runners. Next up, relaunch Idea, the Improbable Dungeons Eccentric Adventures. Again, a very straightforward dungeon crawl-esque vibe game where you're rolling dice, choosing strategy, and going. And so you basically have 3 dice that you're going to be rolling on a turn-by-turn basis and being able to choose which one of those action dice you want to accomplish or utilize to accomplish what you need to do. So if we scroll down here, we get to the battle. You choose your asymmetry, roll your dice, draw a risk card, and a combination or setting of 6 total cards between the boss cards and the risk cards going to be present each adventure. And I skipped past the core pledges and the stretch goals here, which show a bunch of the other stuff that are included here. And you can kind of scroll through that if you want to in a minute. But then you go and you then utilize these dice, utilize the tools and the loot that you're gathering in order to defeat the bosses, right? There's status effects, there's combat positioning, and you can see you're just moving across here in this sort of corridor, just very similar to the previous game that we talked about. And the order is going to matter, the actions are going to matter, the items and the loots are going to have special abilities to go along with this, and you can kind of check it out from that aspect. So reward tiers, again, it's a little expensive for what it is. It's definitely an indie game design style, and 60 euros though for a deluxeified version of it at the retail side of things. So 100 euros for extra. But clearly, again, you know, people like what they're seeing, and so if you want to pay 100 plus, March 2025, okay, fair enough. A little Fire and Ice expansion to go along with it, and a standard expansion versus the deluxe expansion, Saboteur mode, where it's a 1 versus all, 40 foil cards that you're getting, and as well as some metal coins. So got a little bit of everything there. You want to see more? Go check it out. Idea. Next up, Jakarta Traffic. This is sort of a swap-based tile movement where it's also a little bit of a pick-up-deliver with orders. And what you're essentially doing is you're manipulating 2 tiles on the board and then following a blue track or a path in order to deliver what you need to, as you can see here, to where it needs to go. It comes with 5 modular expansions that they list right here that can be incorporated into it, each offering a little bit of a different dynamic to go along with the tile swapping in the first place. $35. Exclusive modules, indie game from a nutshell, just like with the last couple of these. You're not probably going to get it elsewhere if you have any interest in the first place. So there's a playthrough if you want to see exactly how it works and how it goes. The preview there as well in a couple different languages, and, you know, maybe get it by the end of the year. And so just sort of a nice combination of tile laying, pick up and deliver, and it's going to be low overhead, easy to get to the table, but is it right for you? Well, I'm highlighting it so you can check it out because it's already funded at $12,000 of its $10,000 funding goal. I hate that Kickstarter. Stop doing that. There you go. Last up, Train Rush back over on GamePound. Not funded, but we're going to see where it goes. 14 of 49,000 right now. So as we go down here, you can see Train Rush is a 2 to 4 player game, 60 minutes per player though. Ooh, that could be a little bit long with 4 players. You have 3 different regions that you're exploring and building railways throughout. This is more of the heavy Euro game with limited randomness, combining the mechanics as they stay here: action drafting, area majority, train movement, as well as resource management. You're going to be moving your trains clockwise through the use of action cards, visiting cities and areas within these regions to build warehouses, transfer stations, as well as fulfill the contracts that are going to be required. 7 phases, though, in each round. Again, it's probably going to cost you around triple digits. If you're getting it for the early bird, you're going to save $12. But again, what does the game actually play like? What do you need to know? You get way down here, you start to see some of the videos that are going along with it. So unfortunately, even if you scroll down here, you start to get through the stretch goals, you start to get to the why back it now of things, and they start to show you again what's in the box, and you have the reviews and the, well, previews here for the most part of what you're going to be looking at here, a little bit of both. But unfortunately, there's no description of what the actual game mechanics are. Why is this different than any other train, economic, or heavy Euro game? Why is this different than anything else I've already featured or covered on this video, or even this month, or even this year? How does it compare to those other ones, right? When I talked about 18 España earlier in the video, they were very clear, forward, and frank about what's different. And again, this one is not going to be one I'm going to summarize for you, right? Heavy Euro, this rulebook is about 60 pages, folks. So again, I don't need the rules fully laid out. I don't even need GIFs on the page, GIFs, whatever you want to say. I need to know why I would back this one over other games. What makes this one unique? Show me something more than just what's in the box. So, I mean, I can see why it's not funded. I can see why it could fund, but show me how you compare to others in your similar genre. What makes you stand out? Hopefully Trainrush can do that and show us what they got and see if they can still fund. It's early on. They got plenty of time. There you go. There you go. That is the roundup. Way too freaking long. Way too many games. I think we were at like 102 prior to this week of filming or so. So this will bring us, you know, closer to 130 games for the year to date. So I'm really tired after doing this video. And it was a lot of work. And you know what? The news video and upcoming for tomorrow, the news video, you know how much I love talking about news. News is one of my favorite things to talk about on this channel as a whole, because I get to also put my opinion in there. Not like I do that anywhere else on my own channel, but it's just fun to do. So who knows? I don't know. You know what? I just saw a statistic. I got a YouTube email from YouTube, whatever's right. I was talking about my month of February. You guys were fantastic. I'll throw this in here at the end. Thank you so much. 97,000 views on my channel. 97,000 views. The weird thing is, and this is the dichotomous thing, right? Like, how do I convert some of those views to more subscribers? Because I had 236 subscribers. That's it. 236 subscribers, 97,000 views. So you guys who love me, you guys love me. And I really appreciate that. How can we let other people know that I'm putting out the stuff I'm putting out, though? Because I just don't seem to have the, right? Whatever. It's fine. Made my peace with it. Got a couple videos coming up for next week as well. Veiled Fate expansion. We'll talk about that more tomorrow. And Roth is launching next week from Chip Theory. So that's going to be the heaviest of the heavies, potentially. You know, it'll raise $500,000. Hour-long area control game. I don't know. I got nothing else. I got to sell some games. I really got to sell some games now because my 10-year-old was at his little get-together on the other night. And I get a call towards the end of it. All right, like I don't get calls, you know, like at night, ever, right? And it's ringing, and I'm like, well, that's not a spam call. That seems too late and too odd of a time, right? It's the head of the little group he's part of. It's like a Boy Scout-esque group, and kid fell, and he's like, he chipped his tooth, and he's crying. I'm like, okay, my wife's coming. Gets home, tooth isn't chipped, folks. It's freaking broken in half. Like, you know, tooth this big. No, not just the end chip. It's literally just like, boop. Thankfully, it's not one of these. It's one of these just to the side. But he's 10. And we're like, okay, well, he goes into the dentist. And they're like, well, we can try and glue it. But he's too sensitive. So we're going to wait 2 weeks. You can glue teeth back in that late. Or they're going to have to put like a crown on it. My 10-year-old. I'm just glad he's okay, right? And it's just money. And, you know, the main thing I'm just worried about is I don't want this to affect him going forward. So we'll do whatever we need to do to make sure that this is taken care of as well as it can be done. Because, you know, I've had stuff like this in my past. And, you know, if you have kids, right, you want stuff to be better for them than it was for you. That is the bottom line of things, period. So whatever I need to do, it's going to get done. So that was getting back to things after vacation. I'm going to be putting out a video next week. I want to show you what happened when I was gone for a week, right? I'm going to film it probably after this. What stuff was waiting for me when I got home? A lot of stuff. That's all I got. Stay classy. Some upcoming spoilers, essentially, for what's going to be on the channel soon. Have a great freaking day. Thanks for watching, though. Really do appreciate it. We are this close to 10,000. Sometime this month? Over 9,000? I'm done. See ya.